Hi, Prime Minister. CBC interviewed the Ukrainian Prime Minister this morning. He said he would like to see you or Deputy Prime Minister Freeland come and visit them in Kiev. He says, quote, it would be a big symbol of support. So I ask you, with the knowledge of security and all those other things, will you go? What do you react to his statement, please?
Canada has consistently been there for Ukraine, and we're in constant contact through the DPM and also directly with the President's office. We continue to look for every way we can not just support them, but continue to demonstrate our support for them. All of Canada stands in solidarity to Ukraine, and will continue to.
Une chose sur l'avortement, s'il vous plaît. Ce matin, vous avez parlé de revoir, d'établir un cadre légal. Monsieur Duclos, lui, parle plutôt de changer la réglementation dans la loi sur la santé. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire exactement?
Ce que j'ai demandé au ministre Duclos et à la ministre Ian de regarder, c'est justement le cadre qui régit l'avortement au Canada pour s'assurer que tout est le mieux placé possible pour protéger les gens. On va regarder qu'est-ce qu'ils vont trouver, on va regarder c'est quoi les recommandations. Il y a plusieurs façons de le faire, mais on va rester comme gouvernement toujours là pour défendre les droits des femmes et on va regarder le cadre législatif, le cadre réglementaire pour voir quelle est la meilleure façon de s'assurer qu'on est en train de protéger les femmes. Je n'écarte pas, mais c'est pas la seule façon de le faire. Certainement, on regarde attentivement ce qui se passe aux États-Unis. On comprend les menaces qui existent pour les droits des femmes un peu partout dans le monde et on va s'assurer qu'on est en train de faire les bonnes choses.
Est-ce que les pénalités en vertu de la loi canadienne sur la santé, les pénalités là, à payer pour les provinces comme le Nouveau-Brunswick, est-ce qu'elles pourraient être revues à la hausse, être plus sévères?
Bien, on a pris cette mesure de retenir de l'argent transféré au Nouveau-Brunswick parce qu'il n'avait pas assuré l'accès à l'avortement. L'année passée, on a investi dans des recherches pour regarder l'état de l'accès à l'avortement à travers le pays et on est ouvert à utiliser tout et n'importe quel outil qu'on a pour s'assurer que les provinces soient en train de protéger l'accès à l'avortement.
Mr. Duclos, why hasn't your government yet started that information portal that you promised in the campaign for access to abortion?
It is progressing, and we are soon going to make further announcements on that, given the nature of the current environment that is becoming even more pressing. We have worked very hard with a number of organizations over the last few months to prepare them for that forthcoming announcement, because we know that not only is it needed to enforce the right to have reproductive and abortion services, but also the information and availability on those services. So there is a lot more to do, but a lot of that has already been done, and we look forward to be announcing that publicly soon.
When is that coming? When is that coming?
So I said soon. It will be quite soon. It was going to come anyway.
But it wasn't in the budget.
And well, the funding was already there. And we look forward to making more known what the impact of that funding will be in the current critical context in which all Canadians are asking whether we are aware of this challenge and serious situation that we see south of the border. So we are on top of that and doing that with many, many stakeholders with whom we look forward to keep working very hard.
And when will the regulations that your government promised in the last election, when will they come forward?
First, two things on that. First, these enforcement mechanisms are already there. The law states clearly that provinces and territories have to provide these services, reproductive health services, in a free and accessible manner. Now, we know that there are some compliance issues. Every year there are provinces and territories whose federal funding is cut because of inabilities for women to have access to those services. But there is more to do, and we will do it.
On dit que des fonds ont été retenus déjà, qui sont déjà retenus. Quelle province s'est vu des fonds coupés et ça représente à peu près combien d'argent?
Toutes ces informations sont disponibles sur le web, là, donc c'est public depuis longtemps. C'est mis à jour à tous les ans. Ce sont essentiellement deux provinces, l'Ontario et le Nouveau-Brunswick, avec lesquelles on a des échanges importants depuis un certain nombre d'années et avec lesquels on sait qu'on va pouvoir continuer à faire des progrès pour s'assurer que toutes les femmes, peu importe où elles sont au pays, ont non seulement le droit, mais aussi l'accès à ces services de reproduction.
Est-ce que ça suffit à les convaincre de fournir un meilleur accès?
Ben, nous sommes dans une fédération. Nous avons, tous les gouvernements ont leurs responsabilités. La responsabilité du gouvernement canadien, c'est de s'assurer que la loi, les principes et les mécanismes de la loi sur la santé sont compris et respectés. Et on sait que les provinces et les territoires font beaucoup d'efforts à cet égard, mais dans certains cas, il y a du chemin de plus à parcourir.
Quelle est la mission que vous a donnée le premier ministre Trudeau? C'est pas clair du tout ça. Qu'est-ce qu'il vous a dit de faire pour la suite avec la loi canadienne sur la santé?
La loi, elle est là. Donc, cette loi, elle est solide. Les règlements sont là aussi, mais ils vont être améliorés. Les règlements vont être améliorés pour accroître la clarté avec laquelle les arrangements entre les provinces et les territoires et le gouvernement canadien doivent fonctionner. Et, comme je le disais, il y a des mécanismes de respect de cette loi qui doivent être améliorés parce qu'il y a encore en 2022, à travers le pays, dans certains endroits, la difficulté pour les femmes d'avoir non seulement accès à l'information, mais aussi avoir accès aux services en termes de...
Est-ce que les pénalités pourraient être augmentées? Parce qu'on parle de... Moi, si je me trompe, là, mais c'est quelques milliers de dollars, là, les pénalités en ce moment. Est-ce que vous allez augmenter les pénalités? Est-ce que ça pourrait vraiment être une pénalité significative? Parce que là, c'est pas ça qui va les empêcher ou qui va les inciter à agir en ce moment-là.
Bien, à la fois, les mécanismes et les pénalités sont transparents. Donc, les mécanismes sont clairs. On travaille ensemble depuis des années. Moi, j'ai parlé à plusieurs reprises à mes collègues des provinces et territoires au cours des derniers mois de cet enjeu, ne sachant pas, évidemment, dans quel contexte on se retrouverait aujourd'hui. Toutes les provinces et territoires, tous mes collègues ont admis qu'il fallait continuer à améliorer l'accès à ces services reproductifs. Les pénalités, bien, elles sont encadrées par des mécanismes administratifs qui reposent en grande partie sur la mise à la disposition du gouvernement fédéral d'informations qui relèvent généralement des provinces et territoires. Mais on va travailler davantage avec ces provinces et territoires dans le contexte actuel pour être sûr d'avoir la bonne information pour, le cas échéant, d'appliquer les bonnes pénalités, mais surtout, parce que c'est l'objectif principal, d'accroître l'accès aux services dont les femmes ont besoin.
Ouvrir de brèches concernant l'avortement. Donc, un règlement pourrait être renversé par un gouvernement autre, une opinion autre que la vôtre. Comment vous pouvez réglementer sans ouvrir de brèche qui limiterait par la suite le droit?
Bien, on est dans une démocratie, évidemment. Il y a deux risques possibles. Un risque premier, c'est de changer la loi. Le risque deuxième, c'est d'amoindrir la valeur des règlements. Je doute qu'un futur gouvernement fédéral, peu importe qu'il soit, change la loi canadienne sur la santé. Repose sur des principes qui sont non seulement très solides, mais universellement, je dirais, appuyés par les Canadiens. Ceci étant dit, il y a la volonté d'appliquer des mécanismes pour faire respecter cette loi. Nous, on était très clairs. Ces mécanismes sont importants. Une loi, c'est beau, mais il faut aussi pouvoir l'appliquer. Et c'est pour ça que non seulement on va continuer à utiliser ces mécanismes, mais on va aussi les renforcer au cours des prochains mois. Alors, merci beaucoup. Merci.
So I just wanted to get your sense of things. The Liberals promised to create an information portal for abortion access and to get rid of disinformation on abortion access in Canada. They promised new regulations under the Canada Health Act to ensure or better protect abortion access. Those were both promised in the 2021 election. So far, they don't have any clear answers on where those are, when they're coming. I'm just wondering what your sense is of whether the Liberals' actions hold up to their words on abortion.
Well, in a word, no, they don't. There's no right to abortion without access to abortion. And although the Liberal government's position on the right to abortion has been laudable, there's not been the right action to back that up. So in most regions, if not all regions of the country, access to abortion is still woefully inadequate, and many women do not have access to this, what I consider primary health care service, and that's been a failure over the last 7 years, frankly.
And so what do you make of the fact that, 9 months after the election, they don't have answers on their promises during the election?
Well, it calls into question their commitment. It's not enough for the Prime Minister or Liberal cabinet ministers to say that they believe a woman has a right to choose. What matters is whether or not that right can be fully exercisable in practice. And the truth is in Canada is it's not. I've been calling on the government for a long time to withhold Canada Health transfers from provinces if they are failing to make abortion services available in their province. And so far, this government has refused to do so. I think they withheld a pitiful amount of money, like $60,000 or something, from one of the Atlantic provinces, which is not enough to cause any kind of real response. Sorry?
Should penalties be bigger for, according to the Canada Health Act? Like, should the province be enforced to pay like a bigger price if they don't give sufficient access?
Yes. I mean, the Canada Health Act, the transfers are intended to be transferred to provinces who are respecting the principles of the Canada Health Act. One of those principles is accessibility of services. So if provinces are not making abortion services available, then it's a proper and I think an appropriate response for the federal government to withhold sufficient amounts of money to cause the province to respond, and the Liberals have refused to do that.
Right now it seems to be that it's based on, they withhold the transfer at the exact price of the abortion service that's not given, rather than actually being a penalty. They just don't provide that transfer. So what is an adequate penalty then?
Well, an adequate penalty is the amount of money that's sufficient to cause the province to respond in a proper way. So obviously that dollar for dollar formula that the government uses is not working. It hasn't caused abortion services. I think it was in New Brunswick, if I'm not mistaken. They have failed to respond in an appropriate way. So that tells me that the federal government has to up the ante. It has to be enough money that the province feels the pinch, so that they actually conform to what the Canada Health Act requires. And that is every woman in the country should have access to abortion services on demand in a timely fashion, in a way that is regardless of their ability to pay. That is not the reality for Canadian women. And so for Prime Minister Trudeau to internationally claim that he supports the right to choose while presiding over a country that does not make that right an actual reality is hypocrisy. And it's something that the federal government should act on immediately.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about VFS Global specifically in a minute, but just a general idea. You know, don't think a lot of us realize, you may have, that the government of Canada has been outsourcing this visa application centers, I think since 2007. They've been doing it for a long time, and now it's a $200 million contract for VFS Global. What do you think just about the general idea of the government outsourcing visa application centers?
Well, to be very honest with you, I don't like the idea at all. With visa application centers, there's a lot of sensitive information that goes out. I know that the government will say that they'll take all of the measures, confidentialities is protected and so on, but notwithstanding, if you were somebody in a country that might have tensions and conflicts, especially human rights violations, you have to wonder, for the very fact that the visa center is outsourced to a company in that country, what may happen? What are some of the repercussions? Even though files may well be protected, would someone recognize you if you walked into the office to apply for a visa to leave and so on and so forth? And those are, those are real worries, I think, for people. And so for me, on the whole, I don't like the idea at all.
We've had some complaints from some Ukrainian refugees about these service centers operating in Berlin or elsewhere. And I guess that's the other thing, too, is that what accountability do we have that this third party will provide appropriate service levels? So there isn't long lineups. So they are responding to applicants' concerns. Do you get your sense that they're responding and being accountable to Canadian taxpayers?
Well, one thing interesting, when you raise that issue in terms of accountability to the government, their response is that, well, people can complain. Well, who are they going to complain to, right? I mean, they're overseas. They're not going to complain to their own country, to their own government. And so really, that is not a feasible option by way of complaint. So to suggest that there's some level of ability for people to raise their concerns, I don't think is really effective on the ground. And that's another concern that people have, in fact, brought forward.
We are officially a bilingual country. You understand the Berlin office of VFS is an English-only operation. Is it important that the Canadian government provides services in our official languages?
There's no question that the Canadian government should be ensuring that offices provide overseas offices provide services in both English and French languages.
The government's had the procurement offer out to ask the industry, VFS Global and others, to do some more things, to add premium services and other sorts of services. Do you think the government's been upfront with critics, with Parliament, about some of its ideas for expanding the operations of these application centers?
Well, the government actually have, I think, engaged in a process that has not been transparent at all. In fact, right from the beginning, it was disturbing to learn that, for example, VFS Global in China had been operating, and there were a lot of questions to which the government themselves did not seem to appear to have known. They were surprised, for example, to learn that it was subcontracted out and that the subcontracted company in China was, in fact, owned by the Beijing police. How is it possible that the Canadian government didn't even know about that? And those are the kinds of things that are happening. And then, of course, you know, with escalating fees and so on and so forth. So are we now moving to a direction where visa services and access to visa services is based on your ability to pay? It shouldn't be like that. You know, in the case of China, for example, in the United States, they actually do all of their work in-house. And especially under these, I think, challenging times, and at these times where there are so many concerns with human rights violations, persecutions that are going on, whether it be the Uyghurs or the people in Hong Kong, and so on and so forth, I think it is absolutely essential that the government bring those services back in-house. And in fact, that was a recommendation by the committee for the government to bring those services back in-house.
Last question. There's been lots of researchers outside our country that have looked into VFS Global, and they're concerned that this company takes financial advantage of migrants. And I don't know if that's crossed your radar or that's a concern as well.
On the issue around taking advantage of migrants, I think people go to these visa centers to make their applications, and so the operation is only supposed to process the applications. Now, separate from that, whether or not there are issues with consultants, and a lot of times ghost consultants and such, who are in fact doing work for migrants and taking advantage of migrants and selling them a bill of goods that's never going to materialize. We certainly have heard a lot of concerns with consultants operating in that regard and all across the globe, in fact.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.